Finance Administration's report. Then we'll hit you up with the School Committee member reports, followed by the building project updates. We'll then hopefully hear from some citizens during citizens' requests, followed by the School Committee Subcommittee appointments. Then we'll welcome a special guest, Bobby Sullivan, the World Language Coordinator, who will be providing a review of the World Language Program. Then a request for our approval of a fine arts theater overnight trip in New York City. Soon thereafter, Amber will update us with the final plans for the annual town meeting and warrant articles. And then we'll vote on a final approval of the 5-year strategic plan, and then we'll adjourn for the evening, with no need for an executive session tonight. So let's begin with our approval of minutes. Do we have a motion to approve the minutes from March 2nd, regular session?
So move.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
Any discussion? All those in favor?
I don't know, did you see the minutes?
I read that.
Okay, perfect. Just making sure, okay.
5 in favor, 0 opposed, 5 being present.
Fine.
So now we'll move on to the superintendent's report. Amber?
Thank you very much. I hope everyone had a nice weekend. We rolled back the clocks. It's rolled forward the clocks, and it's significant that we're sitting in a light room here, which feels very, very good. I think it lifts everyone's spirits. There's a sense of positive energy in our buildings. There's a continued smooth implementation of doing all we can to stabilize a sense of return to normalcy. I think an important part of my report tonight is that for the first time in 2 years, I'm not doing a COVID update report. And so I consider it a milestone to pause on and to reflect for a moment that we often have, we say it's been a hard 2 years. We talk about the trajectory of that experience, but it is a majorly significant turn in the lives of our students and our faculty that we are indeed seeing enough normalcy that I do not need to make updates as of now on COVID. And I can say for all of us that we're all feeling tentatively a deep sense of excitement about that, while we're also anxious still and just kind of hoping that we really are moving forward. So I feel like the energy in buildings is really good, but I think the most significant thing for me tonight is just the sense of recognition of how incredibly challenging that time was and how immensely proud I remain of the decisions we made and the work that we struggled through to try to do the best we could to provide safety and education in our community. And I look forward to the spring and being able to finish up this school year ahead with prom and graduation and a spring musical and Kids Without Masks and things that we have missed so much. I can't express how much it impacts the world of schools to have that stuff not happening. So I am happy and joyful. I am feeling more resilient, and I think that was the most significant thing that I wanted to share tonight. It's a big deal. So thank you to all of you who trudged through 2 years of trauma. It's been traumatic and stressful, and I think that we all deserve a chance to see the turn of the clocks as really significant this year, and so I'm very excited. That's my report tonight.
Very uplifting. Daniel?
Good evening. I feel like I'm going to throw some water on that because I'm talking about youth mental health here for Amber. We should have reversed our updates because I just wanted to keep the committee informed, and we've been doing these reports all year about initiatives in the district about our youth and their state of their mental health, and knowing that there's been a rise in depression and anxiety and mental health distress rates nationally. We've had some initiatives here to increase and improve our programs for screening students and doing early identification of students who may be presenting with problems. And you may recall that I presented to you that in the fall in grade 9, we did a universal screener where the whole 9th grade was screened in a matter of hours, and then students who were identified as being atypical in terms of basically showing some signs of distress were then that same day brought into quick meetings with counselors to assess the level of distress. And so we did a similar, we decided to do it at the middle school, and today was the day that we did it in grade 7. And so we did, and so it's, we look at it as a pilot. At some point, I would think we would be doing this for our students in all grades in some capacity. But the grade 7 class, we basically, there were 279 students who were screened. The screener takes just actually a matter of minutes. It's like a click off of like ideation kind of questions about, the levels of depression, anxiety, suicidal ideation, anything that triggers that is worrisome in terms of a response goes immediately into a spreadsheet. And then it's quite the operation in that we have counselors. They had 20 counselors there, counselors from the high school, counselors from Riverside's, the Riverside program, counselors from the Westborough Youth and Family Services, and of course the Gibbons counselors. And then those counselors, there were basically 89% of our students were screened out as normal, and then the 11% that had distress indicators met with the counselors. It's about 30 students then had meetings with the counselors. And, the question is always, did we identify anybody that wasn't on our radar before? And the answer is about 10 students. So 10 students who we didn't know about were, sort of like taken in and had some discussions. And so I feel like it's a very important program for us to do. We're learning a lot from doing it. And Kim Tynan gets a lot of credit for working with our counselors. And John, why am I going to forget his last name? John Crocker. Who is contracted with the district to help us have the skills to be able to do this kind of screening.
I think our reports do mesh together. I will just comment that, as we move into recovery, we will see these changes and where we need to shift programming to be responsive. And I think that's part of, we can still be feeling good about that. And I think our screening is an indicator that we're ready to kind of focus on that work even more. But I think people have asked, as we've talked about the social emotional learning, kind of what is the direction of that work? What kinds of things are you directing your energies towards? Really doing these up-close screeners to identify students who might need help and support is the heart of good mental health support. So I'm pleased to see the work in that.
Yeah, I want to add one more thing is just the youth risk behavior survey that we do every other year with our students. We should be getting that data back relatively soon, which will give us a sense of how we are norming compared to other years. And that'll be important data for us to have, to see right at this point 2 years ago versus 4 years ago, how are our students doing? So I'm hoping that we'll do a spring report on that we'll get the data, we'll be able to come before the committee sometime maybe by May.
Yeah, definitely.
Question, when you do that comparison, is it going to be grade-wise or is it going to be, because the kid was 4 years younger? So
yeah,
how
so
do
it's, it basically doesn't identify by student, but you can look at the cohort. You can basically, so you can do 7th grade to 7th grade, or you could do, basically where would those kids would be in, if it's 4 years later, they would have been in 11th grade, right?
Yeah,
So you can see how the 11th grade class compares to the 7th grade class 4 years ago.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah,
That would be the longitudinal, but you wouldn't be looking at individual student scores. You just don't have that data.
And my second question was, out of 30 students, you said 10 were new and 20 were kind of, they had a history? Is that?
Yes.
And did any one of those it's good that we got them screened and saw the counselor. Is there a plan of action, how to go about next steps?
Yes, and I would say that the plan, well, the next steps, there would be some contact with families that they were screened out as having some issues that they were concerned about, that students were concerned about, and that the faculty was or the guidance staff was concerned about. And then, depending upon the conversation with the family and with the child, next steps would be determined. But yes, definitely.
Thanks.
Madam Chair, I have one point I want to interject. I got a note from Westborough TV, and they just indicated that they had been a little, like 5 minutes late unmuting the audio. So I just want to offer 2 points of clarification, that we elected the new chair, who is Lisa Edinburgh, who is sitting in that seat, and that the vice chair was unanimously selected as Steve Durrett to continue with his strong leadership, and that we welcome Steve Batchelor as our new member of the school committee, and how pleased we are to have him on the committee. And I believe that updates the pieces that they might have missed, for the record. So hopefully we're caught up if you missed that at home.
It would have appeared like April Fool's if you came on afterwards.
What is happening?
What's happening? Okay. Dave, do you have anything for us this evening?
Very short update. I actually just want to take a minute to give a shout out to Food Service and Jacob Martin for providing a really great lunch for the district during our PD day last week. So I just wanted to give him a shout out. They worked really hard. It's essentially an off day for them, so he was able to recruit some staff and come and make sure that that all the teachers and educators and administrators had food to eat during that PD, which I think we all got or felt was very valuable. So I wanted to give him a shout out and say thank you to him. Another budget update would just be is that just continuing on budget work this year and continuing to support Superintendent as we plan for Saturday's meeting. We hope everybody is there to support the school budget and that we are looking forward to it.
Okay, thank you. Now we'll go on to school committee member reports, and we'll start. Do you want to read Andrew Chen's
Yeah,
report?
I have, Andrew couldn't be here tonight, but he gave me some things to mention from the schools, so I will take over his report. He said that the March open meeting took place after school today at Westborough High School, and the discussion between students and administrators was centered around staying consistent with the social emotional learning lessons and to more smoothly incorporate them into the class curriculum. The Regional Student Advisory Council also discussed adding a financial literacy class as a core mandatory class for Westborough High School students. The high school has implemented flex time for students to seek extra help with teachers after school. Tonight at the high school, the Student Council and the Westborough High School Microbank are hosting a Trivia Bee fundraiser. And next Friday, March 25th, there will be a high school spring dance open to all grades 9 through 12. And this Saturday, National Honor Society volunteers will be helping to babysit students at the high school so parents can attend the town meeting. So we thank them for that. And that is Andrew's report.
Thank you. Steve Batchelor, do you have any reports for this evening?
No, I have nothing to report yet.
Okay. Ms. Vincent?
Just to encourage everyone to come to town meeting on Saturday, the 9 a.m. start at the Westborough High School. And also just to let everyone know that you can come and go from town meeting when it fits your schedule. So, and it's also broadcast on Westborough TV. So if you wanted to monitor the ongoings of town meeting, even if you can't get away to be there, it's always available for you to watch and listen.
And there will be babysitting services from 9 to 9 at the high
And
school.
lunch, food provided, desserts by Women's Club, they always do, but we are also providing sandwich wraps, and I think pizza and some other type of food that people can do, go out, purchase something that they need, sit and eat, and then go back in, or take it in and eat if they need to, if they don't want to miss an article.
Mr. Nandan?
So, couple of things. First of all, I would like to thank Sarah for her services if she's watching on Westborough TV. And welcome, Stephen. Look forward to working with you. And from my end, we are still looking at the option for electric bus. We are very interested. The company is very interested. If you when you get a chance, I would like to know what the contract with NRT is and what the feasibility is. So if you can give me an update, that would be helpful for us to look at next steps forward.
Definitely. Dave and I imagine that we'll put together a small subcommittee that Dave would lead and work with you to look at the contract, the opportunities, and what it would take. Something I really like about our team, and Steve demonstrates this with the net zero work, which is anything is doable and it's an advantage and we need to find a way to do it. So it's a no obstacles perspective. We need to find a way to move forward and take steps towards a stratified purchasing of buses if we can make it happen. So it's kind of a cool creative opportunity. I think Dave's looking forward to it, and we'll dive in.
Appreciate it. We have been very clear with the electric bus company that we cannot have any budget impacts. So they have worked with districts, school districts, other school districts with trying to match the existing contract kind of thing.
Yeah,
So,
no, I think we're ready to dig in. It's in the strategic plan. You saw it in print. It's got to happen now.
yeah.
That's the commitment. Once you vote it, it's going to happen.
So I have a comment, I guess, on that in terms of how this is going to be organized. The bus contract, of course, is a contract that comes before the school committee to vote and to understand the ramifications of it. The way I would anticipate the work that you're discussing, Raghu, is simply that the information that you garner from your contacts, the potential vendor of the bus or whatever the actual organization is that information be put in a report and delivered to the school committee, versus the idea that the entity, which is not exactly sure what the entity is, but the organization that you're working with, not assume that you have the lead for that work, and that the information comes to the school committee to determine how we're going to implement it, and whether the cost benefit of it is positive relative to the town.
Yeah, exactly, Steve. I've been very clear to them that whatever, at this point, it's an information gathering
And that's fine.
exercise.
That's
That's
what
why
we
I'm
need.
trying to gather all information, including the contract side of things, put together, and then and different options. Whether they gave me two options, whether you lease the bus directly or work through the bus committee, the NRT bus company. So different options, then we'll put together a report and we'll present the report to the school committee. And of course, it has to go through school committee before
Maybe-
the actionable item.
It potentially could correlate or align with the renewal of the contract.
Exactly.
Yeah.
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 Time-wise too, we don't know. It's all at this point, it's an exploratory exercise from my point.
Yeah, there's a lot of issues here, as I'm sure you're aware, not only what happens to the school budget, but also how it fits into the overall consumption of the town in terms of electric purchases.
Yeah.
From National Grid, or for that matter, whatever else the town has bought energy from.
Yeah.
And also how quickly, in other words, I assume none of this is going to be free, that in fact, there will be a fee somewhere, whether it's buying a bus or whether it's paying a contractor or any of those things. And how quickly we could wean ourselves off of the current terms of the bus contract, where the contractor supplies the buses and the fuel, versus, in this case, I'm assuming that in fact, the school committee / town would end up buying a bus. I suppose there's also a parallel where NRT decides that they would buy the bus, but all of those things have a cost. And so from my point of view, as in almost everything that we do here, is the true cost-benefit analysis of what we get versus what it costs us to do it. So anyway, that's my point here.
Yeah.
A lot of information gathering, potential mini committee, and, we'll come back to this issue, which is really important, for our move forward into, energy saving options.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, at this point, it's purely informational sessions we are having.
Good.
No in-depth discussion. Learning about different delivery models. But the town buying the bus was never discussed. Either the NRT or the Heritage Bus Company is going to have the bus and yearly mileage cost that we pay.
Well, yeah, and I guess I want to drive home the point that if you have somebody else buy the bus or buy anything for you and provide you with the service, there's a carrying charge on the money that they put up front, i.e. an interest payment, which if we bought the bus and we had subsidies, because in many cases, a private entity can't get a federal subsidy, whereas we could. Our bottom line cost might be a lot less if it's, purchased by the municipality.
That's a good point. I'll take it back.
Yeah, so anyway, I'm just saying, this thing is probably very complicated, and the availability of grants and other stuff plays into how this all works.
That's why we gave it to Ragu.
The more I dig into it, it gets complicated.
We're like, get on this committee, Mr. Don.
Because there was contemplation about this 3 years ago when we discussed the potential of, do you own the fleet, do you not own the fleet? Look at other districts that own fleets.
Sure.
How's that work for them?
We might end up with a hybrid. I mean, I think all of it's very interesting, but to Steve's point and Ragu's point, the strategic plan outlines that we put together a committee of which, Ragu and Dave and Lisa, if she wants, because she's already been wrapped up in the bus stuff, can be at the table, and we'll figure out a plan, which is exciting. So, and bring it back here for the discussion of what options we have. So we'll, I think, again, to your point, set up a process. So I just was texting Dave, we got to get Ragu in right away. So we'll get on it.
Steve, do you have more for school committee reports, or do you want to wait until the building
I'll do the building.
report? Okay. So I want to just say a few things. One, I want to thank Kristen Vincent for her hard work and dedication, stepping up to the leadership role of our committee when the going got really, really, really tough. You continue to amaze me with your poise and your perseverance, having led us during the last 2 tumultuous years, and also impressive in your ability to orchestrate an efficient meeting. Your contribution has made our schools, has been so noteworthy. So I'm happy to call you my good friend, and I'm thankful you remain on the school committee with us. And I also want to welcome our newest school committee member, Steve Batchelor, and congratulate him on his recent election win. I look forward to working with you, and I am sure you will be a major asset to our committee. So thank you for stepping up. It's a huge undertaking for anyone in our town to go that next level of how to contribute and give back to your community. So thank you. I also wanted to mention that Westborough High School student Abby Mayer placed top 6th in her category at state's DECA competition and qualified for the International DECA competition in April in Atlanta. The competition has a written and interactive component. You might be asking yourselves, what is DECA? It's an organization that runs business competitions that align with national curriculum standards in the career clusters of marketing, business management and administration, finance and hospitality and tourism. So good luck, Abby. Also wanted to mention, at town meeting, I am presenting a citizen's petition, Article 35, asking the town to recognize and refer to the second day in October as Indigenous Peoples' Day, just as I also represented the same issue on the school committee last year. As the Westborough Public Schools did last October 11th, this day allows us to honor and acknowledge Nipmuc Nation, whose land on which our town exists. This article is supported by the Nipmuc Tribal Council and is a petitioned warrant article showing up toward the end of the meeting. Please come, speak, and support this article. And I also wanted to finally thank Kim Tynan, our SEL coordinator and district clinical coordinator, for giving a tour of FAILS to the Parent Council, as in Parent Council, SEL, Social Emotional Learning, that parent group. An extraordinary building that I witnessed on Monday evening, seems representative of the 21st century in architecture and in education. It's incredibly beautiful and really thoughtfully designed. So thank you, Kim, for that tour. And now we'll move on to the building project update from Mr. Durrett.
Well, I'll start with Hastings. As we have been talking about, Hastings sprinkler system physically was done. However, on the final walkthrough by the fire department, discussion was had about adding sprinkler heads in closet spaces, which hadn't been on the table before. And so that will have to be done before we can finally close the door on that contract. And so I've been presented with a change order request, which on behalf of the school committee, I will authorize so we can finish the work and move on. On Vales, on the note that was just brought up, we're finally, as you see, in slightly better weather than we've been having for most of the winter, which means that the site work will begin shortly to finish phase 2. Our schedule at this point in time is to finish the work approximately mid-June, assuming the weather cooperates. And what I mean by that is that we will begin to bring material back from where it's being stored at the water treatment plant back to the site to be able to backfill the old school foundation and to regrade the ball field so that, in fact, we can get some grass growing by then and basically close out the work there. As we have talked about before, there are punch list items that are still in the works. Most of the small ones, like fixing light bulbs and door handles and keys and, minor things like that for one reason or another are a problem. Most of that stuff is done, but we do have a couple of bigger ones that we're continuing to complete. We hope to receive the drawings for the modification of the north side of the building in terms of grading to eliminate runoff getting at the area of the north door. We're also waiting for the architect's drawing to put a roof over the back door slab and to install a new slab that will have a trench drain so that any water that gets on the slab won't be able to penetrate the building. So that's, although it's a small area, it's a significant effort now to do that area again. The damage and effort to minimize the damage on the gym floor, of course, was completed, and we talked about that at the last meeting. We've collected all the bills, and as of this moment, we believe that the town will be 100% covered by our insurance policy in regards to those costs. I do have a very positive comment to make in regards to our solar generation system, which was finally accepted by National Grid on the 7th of March. And what that means is that the excess generation that we have been supplying, not free to National Grid, we've been paying for what we've given them based on the fact that the meter that's there is a normal commercial meter which measures energy, but it doesn't care which way it goes. And so for a short period of time, we paid for the energy we gave them. However, our credits now start as of the 7th, and I can tell you from approximately last Thursday, we're Thursday and Friday, and I think Sunday and Monday, and yesterday and part of today were fabulous solar days. For a number of hours, we had peaked out the generation at 400 kilowatts an hour, and we're only using approximately half of that to run the building. So our credits begin, and the credits, although they are in kilowatt hours, we are being paid in dollars. And so that dollar will accrue on our power bill for the school, which can be used by the town, for that matter, or by the school system, or in any other way we want. And based on discussions that we've had here a couple of times, there will be 4 charging stations that will be available not only to the school system, but to the public as well. And we have begun the, the review of what exact system to install and get it accredited by National Grid. the underground facilities for that are already installed. So it's a matter of connecting the station itself to what we've already installed in the ground to see that come to pass. So that's in the works as well. So that's my report for today.
Well, I look forward to hearing about those credits every time. Tell us how we're making money.
Yeah, well, I mentioned to David that I'm very interested in this first bill that we'll receive to see how it works. And, you know, the way they pay you is based on tariffs is what it's called. So when you pay your electric bill, most people have what's called a residential tariff, and the fee that you pay when you add it all up is somewhere around 32 cents a kilowatt hour for most people. If you are a residential solar generator, the excess power that you create and give to the grid, you'd be paid 21 cents. Because we're considered a commercial entity, we won't get 21 cents, but we could very well be in the 10 to 12 to 14 cent kilowatt hour range. And I think I mentioned in past meetings that we're well over 100 megawatt hours. That's 100,000 kilowatt hours times whatever this rate is, which unfortunately we didn't get credit for that, but going forward, we can anticipate a fair amount of credit there, which ultimately could be used if we end up buying electric vehicles to, in effect, remove our fuel cost for those vehicles, because the electric energy this system will create on our side of the meter ultimately is free. We've already made the capital investment to have it be so. So, like I said,
So important that we're committed to that, you know,
I'm
helping.
looking forward to being able
our
to say
environment.
it was a success.
Yeah. Well, thank you. So we're going to now move on to citizens' requests. Is there anyone here tonight that wishes to make a statement to the school committee? I see Boyd Conklin, come right up. Let me just read through our policies, but feel free to come sit in the chair in front of you and put the microphone towards your mouth. As a reminder, we have a policy regarding citizen requests. Some important pieces of this policy include that you must be a current resident of Westborough. Speakers are allowed to address the school committee about issues within the school committee's purview. I'll repeat that. Speakers are allowed to address the school committee about issues within the school committee's purview, Westborough School District policy, or budget. Each speaker will be allowed up to 3 minutes to speak to the school committee. Written comments longer than 3 minutes may be presented to the presiding chair before or after the meeting. You are welcome to hand me additional comments in writing now or send them via email, and I will share them with the other school committee members. Public comment by residents at this meeting is not a discussion, debate, or dialogue between individuals and the school committee. It is an individual's opportunity to express an opinion on issues within the school committee's authority. Our role is to listen carefully to what you have to share with us tonight. Clapping, cheering, calling out, or any other noise following a speaker is not allowed. So please state your name, your address, and then speak into the microphone. Thank you.
Boyd Conklin, 8 Water Street. So I wanted to talk about the vaccines that the school committee continues to push on the citizens and students by holding vaccine clinics and the various ways in which they're handing out flyers and enabling the vaccine to be given and inducing the students to get it and their parents. I look at this CDC, NIH, and pharma collusion with government, and then they've got you, the school committee, buying into this with the ESSER grants 1, 2, and 3, and the CARES, the Corona emergency funding, because if you're pushing these, then that's one of the criteria for your funding on those grants, and so you're very enthusiastic about getting those grants as that funding. Personally, I call this democide, murder of any person or people by their government, including genocide, politicide, and mass murder. And so that's how I look at these vaccines. The information on them recently is for the 25 to 44-year-olds, there's an 84% increase in excess mortality. And this happened when the booster came through. So with every one of these shots, it's an additive effect. The spike proteins have been shown to be made up to 2 months after the boosters are given. I've talked about the 40 to 93% of embalmers that will talk about it on these amyloid clots that they're finding in the siphonous veins. This is the leg vein kind of thing, 2 inches, 3 inches, 6 inches, 2 feet, 3 feet long. And also by tissue sampling, microclots in tissues type thing where they run a D-dimer test to see the clotting, and you usually look in the lungs for pulmonary clots, but they're not seeing those with the test, but they're seeing it all throughout all the tissues type of thing. And I also wanted to mention Ron DeSantis's Don't Say Gay bill that we've heard a lot in the news these days, where in Florida they're keeping the teachers and the institutions, the school institutions, from pushing.
I'm sorry, that's 3 minutes.
Okay, thanks.
Thank you. I'm sorry. My timer went off. Okay, thank you. So we'll move on to school committee appointments. So with Sarah DeLay coming off of the subcommittees, we'll need to reorganize here, and I will walk us through this. Daniel, do you have that? Do we pull it up, or do I just go through
I can
it?
pull it up, actually.
No, that's okay. I mean, I can.
Link to the agenda. So
It's linked, okay.
So, yeah.
So we can start with Forbes Loan Subcommittee. So Sarah was on that. She was mentioning, if it comes up abruptly, we need somebody in that committee, and it doesn't meet very often, but when it does, we need someone there. And so, Steve Batchelor?
I'll take that.
Okay, that would be great.
Thank you.
So we'll put Steve in, are you
Want me to do them?
doing that, Danielle, switching it around?
No, I think, well,
Am I doing what?
Can we edit that as we go, or am I?
I think, no, because Andrea.
Oh, okay.
Andrea will
Andrea
do
will
it.
take care of that.
Yeah,
It's like a historical record.
she'll
and then
read the
she'll update
minutes,
it, so.
yeah. She'll
Okay.
follow the minutes.
Okay.
and-
So we move right along to Sick Leave Bank Committee. So Sarah and myself have been on that committee. I think I'm going to end up probably adding myself to other
You have other
committees.
responsibilities.
So I think I should come off that one.
Yep.
And maybe, since I'm probably going on ones that Kristen,
I can.
You wanna
go
take one of that one?
Yeah, I was on sick leave bank before, so that's easy.
and looking at the number that Sarah was on, maybe Steve, you could be on
Do
that one
that
as
with me.
well.
Yeah, I can.
Okay.
That would be helpful. Then you
fairly
have somebody
straightforward.
there with some history.
Yeah.
If Kristen rotates back on, and then Steve could get trained in, that would be nice.
And I can talk to you about that process too. Okay. So the Joint Labor Management Committee, that's Steve and myself. Oh, it says Kristen's an alternate. Did not even
I
recognize
think because I
that.
was chair,
Ah,
but you can
yes.
keep me on as an alternate. Happy to.
Just in
alternate.
case. I mean, it really, Steve, you're still good with that?
Yes, I am.
Okay. And then we have I think it's Policy Subcommittee?
Yep.
The screen to my left is a little off. So that was Steve Durrett and Sarah. So I should probably go on that because it's typically the chair for,
The policy subcommittee is
Policy
always the
subcommittee is
chair.
always chair and vice chair.
oh, it's
Because it
always
comes
chair
through
and
the
vice chair.
agenda of
I
the
was on
school
it.
committee.
Yeah.
I'm sorry that.
So that's
All right.
Here,
Okay.
Does that help?
So I will go on to that one.
Yep.
And then we have delegate to the Massachusetts Association of School Committees. Steve Durrett, you want to still be on that?
Yes, please.
And Kristen, you're the alternate. Do
Yeah.
you want to maintain that?
Yes.
Okay, great. And then we're moving right along to Capital Expenditure Committee. We have Steve Durrett you want to maintain that role?
Yeah,
You've been doing a great job.
I would like him to, please.
I would like
and
him
thank
to.
you.
I
Please and
agree.
thank you.
Thank you. And then we're the state representatives. So Senator Eldridge and Danielle Gregoire and Hannah Kane are still there until the first Wednesday in January when there's a reorganization. But Carolyn Dykema, the other representative, has resigned, so she's not there. And at this point, Kristen, were you our state representatives?
I can take that on. I know if we had TBD, just because it's sort of, we reach out to them when we need them, or
Yeah, I
need
don't know
them
that it
to come.
requires a subcommittee.
Yeah,
I think it's more that you as a group decide you need an opportunity to
need
meet with
them.
them, or, and typically Andrea ends up serving as a coordinator, to book that. I'm not sure it requires, it's not really a committee.
yeah.
You could probably table that one.
Yeah.
Okay.
I
so
would
that's one-
archive it. You can bring it back if you need it.
Okay.
I might go up and Andrea would say, this is why that's there. But for now, you could archive it.
Exactly.
Okay, so we'll retire it for now and see if there's a need, and we can always add.
Yep.
And then the Supervision Evaluation Subcommittee. Raghu, that's been you. How do you feel? Do you feel okay to stay with that?
Sure.
Okay, then we have the Assabet Valley Collaborative Board of Director. We have Amber on that.
Where are you?
Will you skip?
Did I
think you
skip
skipped
something?
a few. So
you skip?
the pre-K
Oh,
to grade 3 school
I'm sorry.
committee. It's okay.
Pre-K to 3 Building Committee. So is this until Fails is completed, would you say, Steve?
They don't close those
or any
forever.
other
been open
project
forever.
for which we would get state money, but I don't think there's anything on the table yet for,
No, I mean, typically I would imagine, Steve, that as a chair, that will remain in place until with Gibbons, when we archived it at town meeting, they officially closed the committee at a town meeting once all the financials are complete, and then it would archive to the bottom. So I would imagine that Steve, as long as he's on the committee, maintains that spot.
Okay, that would be good.
yeah, and
Yes.
by the way, I guess, to the extent we finish in June, we probably wouldn't close the project until we get the final state money,
Right, it ends up taking a while.
which would be probably a year from then.
Yeah, so I mean, when we look at Gibbons, it was a full year beyond completion of the punch list before we really finalized all of that. So it'll go into a rest phase, which Steve has earned, but then it would stay until he can officially close it at town meeting.
The committee that never ends.
Yeah, I know.
So next we have Sustainable Westborough. Raghu, you've been doing a great job there.
Yeah, I'll continue.
Okay, thank you. Thank you for your
It
service.
took a year to make sense of it. I mean, the stuff's so complex, you gotta dissect it before you can do anything.
So here is what is this? This is
The Westborough TV Board of Directors.
the Westborough TV Board of Directors. So do we not have someone assigned? Oh, Kathy Stoker is our representative for that.
Yep.
We haven't asked her if she wants to be reappointed, but
Well,
it
it's
looks
a-
like she was.
She was, that's a 3-year term, so we're all
Okay.
set there.
All set till 2023. Then we have the Westborough High School Athletic Fields Project. Is that one we could retire?
No, that needs to stay in place. You can rotate Sarah off, but Steve needs to stay in as authorized signature because actually I just submitted legal paperwork. So we're going to have legal action on part of the turf. So we'll be busy on that for probably 2 years.
So do we,
Always fun dealing with council.
so do you want Steve to be on that for?
Yeah, he has to maintain that
Okay.
historically. So it's basically the two of us.
And then we have Assabet Valley Collaborative Board of Directors, and we have Amber representing. And you were appointed in 2018 and reappointed annually.
Right.
Okay, great.
Can you go back to
Oh, did I miss one?
the athletic fields project?
Oh, yeah,
We
let's go
have
back.
Sarah as the alternate, so need to.
Oh, so you want to have an
Can
alternate for?
rotate on.
You want to alternate with Steve for the Westborough High School Athletic Fields Project?
I can join him if ordinarily there are two people on it.
Is it, so based on where we're at with it, do we need 2 people, or is it simply,
No, it's going to be a legal fight.
Yeah, it'll come back to you.
want a second person?
It'll
Yeah,
move to
okay.
executive session discussion,
We
and
want a
you'll
second
actually all
person.
be involved, so that's fine.
So do you want me on that,
As
since
the
it's
chair?
as the chair for
I
legal?
think,
More the merrier.
you can.
I think if Steve is out of station or something and something needs to be signed is
Okay,
the idea, right?
so I think I should join that as chair,
Take Sarah off. And
because it sounds like it's a legal issue. Okay, sorry, Steve, I've taken you off that.
I know I'm running.
That was quick.
he said
So then we have, thank you for going back, by the way. The Town Master Plan Committee.
Amber, has that committee been dissolved?
It's
do you think?
complete,
It's
so
complete,
that
so we can
actually
retire
closes
that.
out,
So we'll retire that.
yeah.
And then the Hastings Geothermal, we have Steve Durrett. Would you like to stay on the Hastings Geothermal project?
Don't you think we can retire that one, Steve? Or you're still signature through,
Yeah, well, right now, all of it is buried within the Fails project. So I don't think there's now been any separate bills that don't come through the project. So whether it's here or not, doesn't matter.
yeah, I actually think that I think the title should be amended to be.
Oh, wait a minute, that was Hastings and that.
Right,
that
so we're
is-
talking about
that is
Hastings.
done.
So I think Hastings, the geothermal is complete,
Yeah.
but I think it should be a Hastings project. Because I think until we do the HVAC and we're going to have ongoing work there. And I think right now, Steve and I kind of shepherd that through because we have the historical knowledge.
So that should be then renamed, Hastings Geothermal, Hastings Roof Project and HVAC.
Yep. And you might want, in terms of like onboarding to learning, I would say, Steve, if you want Steve Batchelor, if we want Steve and Steve, you pick up kind of a substantive thing to kind of read the history on and follow us.
Yeah, that sounds
That'd
good.
be great.
Yeah, that'd be good.
When we think about the transitional training of all of our groups, I think you guys do a great job rotating boards memberships because we'll always have building projects, we'll always have things going on. So it's nice to have a rotation of people who understand the range of committees. So that's great.
Okay. So now the Transportation Committee, that's myself and Steve Durrett. I'd like to stay on that, just because
You're the chair, you can
I've been
decide.
meeting, we meet within RT every, 2 to 3 weeks. And so I've been sort of up to date on that for a while now.
Do you want to overlap, so I've been like drafting people now. Raghu will be on the subcommittee work for the busing, so it'll run tangential to that. He's got this, I guess he can kind of track all that through Sustainable Westborough and just work with you on it.
Yeah,
Or to put him as the second so he can fold in on those meetings.
Okay,
Yeah, that's probably a good idea.
that's a good idea. That's a good idea.
Unless Steve strongly wants to stay there, he's got a lot on his
Do you
plate.
want to be there for the contract piece?
I do.
That's
Oh,
what I
okay,
thought. I
fine.
thought,
Okay.
can it be 3 of us? Is that does it
You
matter?
guys can do what you want.
Oh,
I'm
I'm signing us all up. The 3 of us are on the transportation.
I think it'll
committee.
end up being then Raghu will be in a subcommittee with Dave working on the potential of the electric buses, and you guys will hold the contract work and the stability of
works.
NRT. That would be working nicely.
Yeah.
Okay.
Madam Chair, we can't have 3 school committee members on it.
Right.
Because then it would have to be an open meeting.
If we post it where we need all of them, we would post
If
it.
we
and
post
have
it, sometimes we do
Yeah.
post subcommittee
Yeah.
meetings, so that's fine.
Yeah.
So we can just do a 2.
But Raghu will learn all about transportation soon enough.
That's true, that's true. Okay.
So.
We cannot all sign up. Good point, thank you for catching that. So next, Land Prioritization Committee. Steve, you're on that one?
Yeah, I'm actually the chairman of it. Let me explain what it is. There are parcels of open land in town that are on the list that the, planning board / the rest of the town government created a few years ago, as well as the Conservation Commission. Board of Selectmen created this committee to use the committee members, and I think there's 9 members of the committee, to review these parcels and recommend to the use of those parcels for whatever use they may be. Particularly, I think the target is for affordable housing. But at any rate, it's probably a 2 or 3 meeting effort. And unfortunately, even though the committee was formed 6 months ago or so, we tried to meet twice and could not get a quorum. So at this point, it's two meetings yet to finish this thing. And I think as the weather gets better, we'll probably be able to get a quorum so we can finish this. So I would stay only because I think the continuity would help us get that done.
Well, thank you. Thank you for stepping up. And then finally, we have the stipend committee. This was Sarah, and we've had a lot of reviews of stipends in the last few years, and then there was a discussion last year where we thought we should have a member, come on to that and review stipends with the committee that's already in place.
Happy to do that, if that makes sense.
I think it does, because I think it's helpful that you've seen, a few years of stipends,
Sure.
Yep. Okay. And so I think we need a motion to approve these reassignments of the subcommittee appointments. Do I have a motion?
So move.
Do I have a second?
I'll second.
Is there any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
That's a 5 in favor, 5-0, and that gets approved. There are 5 present, and we move on. Or do we need to go through the contracts?
The negotiation teams?
No,
yet?
you don't need to, you can do those at a future meeting.
Okay. So we're moving along, and we're going to, I'd like to welcome Bobby Sullivan and Brian Callahan. Bobby Sullivan is the World Language Coordinator, and Brian Callahan is the principal of the Westborough High School. And they'll be presenting a review of the World Language Program. It's great to have you with us to share the exciting developments occurring within Westborough's World Language Department. Please speak into the microphone so people can hear you at home. And
Good to
take it
see
away.
you guys.
Yeah, it's good to
Welcome.
see you.
Nice to have you here.
It's so exciting.
It's a pleasure to have Bobby here to do.
Thank you. I'm happy to be here.
His first kind of formal presentation with you. And so typically, World Language won't necessarily be an annual report, but it's an opportunity whenever there's, transition or big happenings or a review. And so this kind of closes out aspects of the review and lets you welcome Bobby to kind of the great transition work that he's provided. So I'll turn it over to you guys.
Thank you. Thanks for having us. And Steve, welcome to the school committee. And it's great to see everybody else as well, again, in person. This is great. I agree with Superintendent Bach that there's a lot of enthusiasm around the spring in the days and weeks ahead. So certainly looking to take full advantage of good weather and good spirits and nice events for our students and families. So what we're going to do tonight is just kind of give you an overview of the World Language Department and some of the progress that it's made over the last really 4 or 5 years since the last time I think that you received a report was in 2017. And in that report, it was basically making some recommendations on how to support the World Language Department at Gibbons and at the high school relative to the changes that we were proposing. So we'll give you a quick update on that. We also want to share some updates on courses and other sort of happenings since that time at the World Language Department. And then we'll also provide you with kind of an almost year 1 progress report of the World Language Coordinator position that you've so graciously supported through 7 through 12 with Bobby Sullivan. And then, if everything really works out, we get a bonus question for you at the end. So it's a little request that we have of you all that I'm sure Amber and Daniel will weigh in on as well. So let's get right to it. So first thing I want to say is that back in 2015, actually, the world language teachers and the department heads at Gibbons and the high school were, as they always do, looking at ways to improve practice and improve learning opportunities for students and to, I guess, modernize or refine the curricula so that it was meeting the students' needs. And this just wasn't a cursory look. This was a deep examination of practice and curriculum. We came to the district office and had some ideas on where we wanted to go, and we put together a review committee, a curriculum review committee, and in 2017 we produced that report that hopefully you had a chance to look at, to refresh your memory, or in Steve's case, to take a look at where we came from. But it was through that examination that we determined we wanted a curriculum and best practices to be as meaningful as possible, so that students could be motivated to take world language courses, not just in year 1 or year 2, but even beyond that, because some data was showing that nationally, even in college, but certainly in high schools around the country, students were not staying, in their 4 years of world language courses. So we wanted to refine, and we wanted to modernize, and we wanted to find ways to meet students' needs. So I guess the term at the time was to really meet the world readiness of our students, because what our students were telling us is they wanted the language to work a little bit better for them. They wanted it to be something that they could use not just in the class but outside of the class. So we embarked on that review committee, and we came up with some wonderful things.
Thank you, Brian, and good evening, everyone. I'm so happy to be here to tell you about all of the wonderful things happening in the World Language Department. So as Brian mentioned, the last report to the school committee was in the spring of 2017, and then I came on board in Westborough Public Schools in the summer of 2017. So when I came on board, we were really looking at the first year or two of this massive curriculum revision project. And the simplest way that I can explain it to you all and the community is that we were moving away from legacy teaching and textbooks and towards proficiency-based teaching, which is really focused on the meaningful communication that Brian was just referring to, based on using authentic resources in the classroom. So in order to do this, at that time, the Massachusetts curriculum frameworks were nearly 20 years old, as they had last been updated in 1999, and this was 2017. So we decided to base our work on the American Council for the Teaching of Foreign Languages, their World Readiness Standards. So here what you have on this slide, you'll see, is the 6 core practices that ACTFL set for proficiency-based teaching. And looking at these 6 core practices and working with Daniel, Amber, Brian, and Jack on how to best support the staff, we invested a lot of time into and money into supporting the staff. So I just want to highlight some of the wonderful things that happen. So first off, we sent 7 staff members to the Massachusetts Foreign Language Association Proficiency Academy. We also sent many people to the Shrewsbury Summer Institute that is co-sponsored by Westborough Public Schools to for that first core practice you see there, really about facilitating target language comprehensibility. I facilitated a book study about high leverage teaching practices, and we were lucky enough to work with Daniel and Brian to have the author of, this was an ACTFL publication, by the way, to have the author, Leslie Grahn, come and do a full day in-service PD for all 7 to 12 world language educators, and that was specifically about guiding learners through interpreting authentic resources. And on that day, and then that high quality PD, Amber and Brian came and visited us, and we were very happy that they were witnessing firsthand the hard work that was going on. So for that third core practice, the interpersonal communicative tasks, we sent a team of teachers to MAFLA's oral proficiency interview training to really help drive that meaningful communication. And then finally, teaching grammar as a concept. We went back to year 2 of the Proficiency Academy, and then the they had a differentiated group for second-year repeat attendees that was focused on that grammar. And in just a moment, I'm going to talk about the backwards design model when we move to the next slide. But first, I would like to give you a wonderful update, and that's in the spring of 2021, in the spring of 2020, the State Board of Education voted to adopt the Act for World Readiness Standards, but then they tasked the world language representative for the Department of Elementary and Secondary Education to adapt those national frameworks and to enhance them with some new things. And Brian's going to talk about those.
Yeah, so that was in 2021. The state finally adopted those standards. We did it in January of 2017.
Right.
Okay, and we feel as though we helped motivate the state to, because of our leadership throughout the state and other districts as well, we felt that that it was so important to have these updated standards, because I think we all know an effective world language program is one that is actually communicative, right? It's speaking in the target language, and it's supporting meaningful, authentic, and affirming interactions in that language between students and between teachers and students. And then they take that experience and that practice and that proficiency outside of the classroom, and they understand the world so much better, which then motivates them to come back and get a little bit more. So I do want to say that was what was most intriguing and exciting about embarking upon this back in 2017. But what's nice about those standards, and I do recommend that you click on that link in the lower right-hand corner of that slide when you have a moment, if you haven't already, because what's also, and we didn't know it at the time, but we know Westborough and the values that it holds, but that curriculum, our work aligns with our vision, the national frameworks, the state frameworks, the district strategic plan, our social emotional work. I mean, I could keep going on and on, but you know, what's really been nice about this is that that the work that the teachers have done, which Bobby gave a nice itemized list of those things, and there's more, but the intensity around that work, we just can't speak highly enough of our professional staff at Gibbons and at the high school in the world language departments. They took out the textbooks that we learned a language in and set them aside, and they built a curriculum from scratch. And that curriculum is rebuilt almost every week to find authentic resources, to find good activities that engage kids, and certainly they reuse a lot of the ones that are proven to be engaging with students, but it is constant revision and refining almost on a weekly, monthly basis. So in between all of those itemized professional trainings, we got feedback from students, we got meetings with teachers, and it's just been really arduous, but it's been really exciting work for our teachers. But the alignment of all of it has just been really fun to watch. I think we also know that an effective world language program lifts up all students, not just the ones who want to pursue a language or a particular culture, but it lifts all of them up, and it empowers them to act with not just content and skills, but the cultural competence and the cultural consciousness and critical thinking skills that will make them ready for the world outside of Westborough High School. So we're very proud of that.
Thank you, Mr. Callahan. And one of the, you explained that very well indeed. And
Thank you.
One of the things that we say at open house, parents' night, if you will, to our little elevator pitch is we don't teach students to conjugate, we teach students to communicate. And in thinking about wanting students to have meaningful communication, we're thinking about what is real world and relevant, right? So just this past fall, we did our third department book study on teaching world language through a social justice lens. And one of the reasons that our curriculum is constantly evolving is because some of the things that are real world and relevant for students are current events. So bringing those into the classroom, what's going on in the target community, in the the countries that speak the languages that we're teaching, and how can we compare that and contrast with things that are going on in our own town, our own state, our own backyard, our own country, et cetera. So I mentioned that the one core practice that I didn't talk about on the previous slide was backwards design. Thank you. And the reason that I wanted to move forward to the next slide and talk about backwards design here is in setting out on, throwing out the textbooks, and of course I do mean recycling the textbooks, we first looked at the 6 global AP themes for AP World Languages, and we really wanted to think about these themes and how we can have opportunities and entry points and access points at all levels of language study for the students. So there you see a few examples of our thematic units, right? So each, instead of having, chapters, we have units based on thematic units and then the authentic resources. So the way that the proficiency progression works for world languages is we have novice learners and then intermediate learners and then advanced learners. So if you look there in Year 1, which is our novice learners, just as a quick example, homes across cultures. So one of the things that was really neat for me as a coordinator is to walk through classrooms and see novice level students talking about homes and wealth equity and health, where we live and what opportunities we have really affect our homes. And one of the things that we like to say in that same elevator pitch to parents, in fact, especially at Gibbons, is that our novice learners are not novice thinkers, and we really want to have those opportunities for higher order thinking and accessible authentic texts, such as an infographic, for example, and really giving them the scaffolds, the sentence starters, etc. Another walkthrough that I did in Year 2, which is when we're breaking the barrier from being a novice proficiency learner to an intermediate, innovations in the city. I couldn't believe that those students were talking about the heat island effect coming from the large urban metropolises in Latin America and how, having rooftop gardens and more parks could help counter that effect. And again, the scaffolding was just really, really fabulous to see. At the intermediate mid-level, we have students talking about climate change. And instead of, Daniel and I were just saying the other day that, back when we were in French, we were reading, the classics and not really understanding it all. But now in that heroes unit, in the intermediate mid, they're reading children's stories about heroes from the target culture and then comparing those with modern day heroes and hometown heroes. And finally, in Year 4, which is the pre-AP, I just want to highlight sustainable eating. So one of the things that we were looking at is the community gardens that some of the schools in Quebec and France are partnering with community partners to have sustainable eating community gardens at elementary schools. So one of the projects that we did in Year 4 last year was they had to imagine which of the Westborough elementary schools that they would have the community garden. What would the community partners be? What how they would advertise to the public. And then finally, they had to write a letter to the superintendent of schools and to the chairperson of the school committee pitching their idea for a community garden at one of the elementary school. So I might just have to mail both of you this year's batch. So I just want to say that all of this work was a lot, and I have to be honest with you that a lot of blood, sweat, and tears went into this, and I just cannot say enough about how fabulous our team of educators are and how dedicated and hardworking they are as well. So now, one of the things that is really important is just as, we teachers were teaching about what we do and how we do it to parents with at curriculum night, we're also really having students understand what proficiency is and how they can set goals and move along that continuum of proficiency. So Mr. Callahan is going to share some student reflections.
Yeah, and they're on the screen there. But I want to take a step back and all of those authentic experiences in activities that kids were involved in. I think we know adolescents have an opinion on a lot of things, right? The engagement in those classes when they start talking about sustainable eating, for example, or national parks and what parks they went to. I mean, that's the hook. And we knew back, for a long time, but when we started really looking at research relative to this specific department and how we could refine it and improve it, we thought that students wanted to come to world language classes so they could learn how to use the language, as I alluded to earlier. So we embarked on this, as I said, and it was only fitting that we would ask students, their opinion on how we're doing. So these are just two examples of some reflections from some students who recently graduated, and I think they speak to the proficiency work that the teachers have structured, as well as the engagement that students are a part of on a regular basis within those classes. So you could take a second to look at those. I think the second one really hits home. It really hits home. There's in that state framework, you'll see a little chart that identifies the 10 characteristics of effective world languages. I think you just need 2 quotes like that to prove it. So. And we continue to get student feedback. We use exit tickets on a regular basis, and that doesn't only tell us and specifically the teachers kind of how it's going in the moment, to inform their practice and inform their instruction, but it also gives us a nice idea of are we on the right track? So it's constant feedback from students. In a lot of cases, all we have to do is ask them, which is great. It's been good to hear and see that interaction. So it's all about the kids. And that's in the classroom. What's happening beyond the classroom?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Callahan. So also we want to tell you about some of the things, as he mentioned, that bringing world languages beyond the classroom. So the first thing that's really exciting, there on your left, you have 3 pictures from the French, Spanish, and Mandarin Club. We had a World Cultures Fair, and what this was our biggest event for National World Languages Week. And one of the great things that we did is think of a science fair, but for world languages and cultures. And, I only had room there for the 3 language clubs, but I would be remiss not to tell you that we did this in partnership with the Teen Advisory Board, the Hindi Club, the the Multicultural Club, the ASL Club, the Russian Club, UNICEF. I'm sure I'm forgetting 1 or 2, so please forgive me if you're watching this and I forgot your club. But it was just a really wonderful thing. And each one of the things that was really neat is that students were allowed to, visit. Teachers signed up. We prioritized, ELL courses and world language courses, but other teachers in their classes had the opportunity to come. But each of the booths had an interactive thing, and the students who were visiting, they participated in the activity, and they had a passport on cardstock, and as they participated, in the trivia wheel or, in the matching or, whatever the activity might have been, they got a stamp on their passport, and then at the end, if they got all their stamps, they got a nice cultural treat. And we haven't, this was actually, these pictures are from March 10th, 2020. So the timing on that was very good. And we're hoping to bring it back. It would have been this past week, but we're actually in talks to potentially bring it back later this spring, but if not, definitely next year. In that middle picture, we had a junior class trip with the Year 4 students to the Punto Urban Art Museum. And on the previous slide, we saw that urban art was a unit in Year 4, and it was really wonderful because, not only talking about, the community gardens, we were also talking about another way, and especially in urban communities, that they, urban beautification projects, they have they bring in the urban artists to bring new life and new people moving in, to old abandoned properties and such. And a lot of these artists were local Massachusetts of Indigenous heritage, of African heritage, of Hispanic heritage, of Caribbean heritage, et cetera. And it was just a wonderful opportunity for students. And then finally there on the right, we have the World Language Department Mural project that was done in the fall of 2018 in collaboration with all of the same clubs that I mentioned just a moment ago at the World Cultures Fair. And then there, what you see before you is the most famous monument in China, Spain, and France. And then the flags that are connected on the rope there between the buildings is, at the time we surveyed the students of what home language or home community they identified with, and those were the 30 most common respondents, celebrating the multicultural diversity of Westborough Public Schools. And speaking of beyond the classroom, I want to take this opportunity to share just a few brief highlights with you about my role as curriculum coordinator and some of the things that I have been able to do thanks to your support and, of course, the support of both the building administration at both Gibbons and the high school, as well as central office. So the first thing I wanted to bring to your attention is that I'm really able to invest a lot of time and energy into both the vertical and horizontal alignment of curriculum. And let me explain briefly what that means for world language. So obviously, vertical, is 7 to 12, but in world language, we talk a lot about the horizontal curriculum, because those themes that you saw just a slide or two ago are what we call language neutral themes. And what I mean by that is we're able to work in teams. So you think of a lot of the teamwork, that's happening in our K to 8 schools. Well, in world language in 7 to 12, our teams are year-based, right? So we'll have, the French and Spanish teachers come together and they share the same thematic units, and they're able to brainstorm ideas and essential questions. And then, of course, the modifications is what is happening in the target community? What direction are the authentic resources taking us in? But to be able to have those horizontal conversations from language to language, and also horizontal conversations between the novice teachers at Gibbons, the entry-level courses, as well as the novice-level teachers at the high school. And having a 7 to 12 coordinator role like this, I'm really able to facilitate some of those conversations. So the second thing, another way that I'm able to support teaching and learning is not only through supervision and evaluation, but really just having the time to invest in instructional supports to onboard new staff. So, if if you can imagine that if you're coming from a school to Westborough, from a school that had a legacy world language program and you were only used to textbooks, to throw that type of teacher, into the deep end with no floaties can be really stressful. But our team is fabulous, and for me to be able to help and bring them through learning walks and see what proficiency looks like in our classrooms, and to be able to support that teacher to talk through lesson planning with them. And then, of course, all of our team is fabulous about shared materials and providing, them. I don't mean to say that, when I say like jump in the deep end, I mean having a textbook and not having a textbook is stressful. We're giving them lots of pedagogical in-house resources. I didn't mean for that to come across the wrong way, but I'm able to invest a lot of time into supporting teaching and learning in the classrooms, and I thank you for that time. So the last thing I wanted to talk about was the collaborations that I'm able to have with the student support professionals, with the ESL teachers, with the special education teachers and coordinators. And one specific example that I wanted to highlight is that I'm currently working with Gina Delan and Meg Garvey about the transition from 6th to 7th grade and from 8th to 9th grade, and specifically about inclusion and access for our students with specific learning disabilities, and how I can inform them about what we do and how we're incorporating UDL to make our classes differentiated and accessible. And I'm so pleased to have the time to be able to go to Mill Pond and Gibbons and meet with those teams to have those important conversations. So thank you.
And that's only about 1.5 year in to his role, but he's doing exceptional work, and it's good to have him in both buildings. Really, he teaches a class in Gibbons and teaches a class at the high school, and being in both buildings just allows him to do so much. So we could keep going, but I know for the sake of time and the details, we want to kind of move on to assuming that it went pretty well. Can we get to the bonus? Okay, so we want to present to you for your consideration the opportunity to have 2-year language requirement for graduation. We feel as though it's important. We feel as though it's necessary, and we've kind of done our homework in the sense of recognizing that that schools and communities very similar to ours, most of them have a 2-year requirement, and I think it's an important aspect of bringing this proficiency work to kind of some level of importance for our school district, and especially the high school. So I'm in some, those are some schools that have a 2-year and some that don't. I will say that those listed that have no requirement, just this year alone, Shrewsbury and Algonquin have looked into a 2-year requirement. So we've been in conversation with them. But back to our your consideration of our proposal to start with the class of 2027, which is our current 7th grade, to have a 2-year graduation requirement for a Westborough High School diploma. Want you to know that we are working on opportunities for alternative pathways and some exemptions for students who may not be able to meet that requirement. An alternative pathway, for example, could be learning American Sign Language. Another alternative pathway could be a student doing some independent studies with a teacher on a different language that we do not offer, and so on. So we're currently gathering that information. If in fact we could move forward with this, that we would absolutely have something in place for students that could not meet that requirement for one reason or another. So know if Amber and Daniel want to kind of wrap this up or conclude it?
Sure,
or-
I would chime in. I mean, it was great presentation, very thorough. I appreciate that. On the graduation requirement piece, we've been talking about for a couple of years, and Bobby's done a good job of doing the research and looking at other communities. One of the things I would add about an incentive for doing this, a couple things. One, the state school system, the UMass system, it requires 2 years of language. We feel like that's a big part of the reason that a lot of schools have moved towards making it a requirement. So they're signaling to our kids that if they're going to go to the state schools at a minimum, and we know that 4 years is required for going to some of those the more elite private schools. And then when we asked the question of like, what would this mean for the students in our building, we looked at our last couple of graduating classes to see what % of students are already fulfilling the requirements. And it's basically towards 95% of our students, and the 5% that are not fulfilling the requirement really would fall into that alternative pathway. So in some sense, this is a signaling mechanism to the higher ed institutions that, this is something we value, and that, and combined with the bilingual stamp of biliteracy, are just important ways in which competitive high schools like ours, I think, are moving just to make sure that world languages has a place along with the other core subjects as being something that is a requirement of our students. I don't know if there's anything else you would add.
No, I just endorse you accepting this recommendation and putting your stamp of approval on it as an acknowledgement of kind of just the high quality of program that the review created. And I think that I couldn't be more pleased with the direction of the work. I had been living in a proficiency model when I was in Weston, and really was so excited by Bobby's vision for really innovating the speaking level of the work and bringing that vibrancy. And you see the difference in that program all the time. It's very exciting. So I endorse it and hope that you will take a motion to support it.
Any of the committee? Yes,
Can I?
Raghu?
Yeah. Thanks. I completely support this. Great presentation, by the way. Awesome work.
Thank you.
One thing that we always forget when we think about languages, right? Not to tout myself, but I know 5 languages. So it helps you to think critically. It's not just speaking, but it's also rewiring your brain to think critically of all the aspects, several problems, several things that you may come across. And we live in a global economy. There's no going escaping that. We need to learn a language that we can easily communicate with and interact with, and at some point it's always going to be helpful. So I'm 100% on board with this. Yeah, we need to make sure it's part of the curriculum. It's officially there. Everybody knows it. They have to take it to graduate, and that's the way forward.
Thank you.
Yeah, I would say I also support this, and it sounds like our students at Westborough High School are already doing this. So it's just, like you said, it's sort of like a paperwork kind of thing that we'll do to make sure that we're signaling to people outside of our community that we're a high-performing high school, that we have this requirement, and that we have the level of professionalism among our staff to meet that requirement and to support every student to meet that requirement. Even if students, come to us with challenges, we have an alternative pathway for them. So I definitely support this, and I do see having a daughter that went through the middle school and is in the high school now, very enthusiastic about speaking Spanish and will speak it on her own and with her friends and wants to do that. And I remember my experiences learning a second language, and I couldn't speak it to you right now at all because it was book learning and it was rote learning and it wasn't applicable. So I appreciate the changes that have been made to make it successful. And these kids are definitely going to take the language with them into the real world. And that seal of biliteracy, that's an opportunity for our students. I remember being at graduation and seeing how many students had not just biliteracy, but triliteracy.
Right.
And so it's incredible so that those students can bring their home languages to their school experience and show their proficiency with that as well. So thank you so much for your presentation and all your hard work. Appreciate it.
Thank you for your kind words and support.
Yeah, I too would like to just express my support for this. When I was a graduating senior in high school, I was in Spanish 6, so I should own my biases. In fact, before this meeting, I didn't know that there wasn't already a 2-year requirement, so I'm sort of disappointed that that wasn't already there. And to be honest, had you asked for 3, I would have supported that. Yeah, right. So I'm absolutely in support of this, and I especially love the direction that World Languages is going, throwing out legacy textbooks and adopting authentic resources. And I would love to, as someone who took Spanish 6, I would love to hear thoughts on later what examples of these authentic resources. I love the core practices that are being centered here, and this looks wonderful. I'm just so delighted that my daughter will be class of 2028, so she will be a part of this. So thank you.
Take you, now that you remember, we'll take you up and give you a tour. You can go see one of the classes. We'll get you up there to check it out.
Sure, for sure.
So I will tell you that my daughter is a product of the 2017 to 2021, and she took 4 languages at Westborough High School, including independent study, virtual classroom to introduce a couple of languages, and went through, seal of literacy, biliteracy for Spanish. And even though she can speak very well and can write essays in Spanish and read books in Spanish, she went on to become a linguistics major in college and international relations.
Wow.
And a minor in languages. And she's one of the ones that she was introduced to during her high school career. She is now going for fluency in another language. So very, very exciting. So
Thank you for sharing that story. You must be so
committee.
proud. We're proud as her educators.
So proud of your department. I think that, the only concern I have is, there any budgetary change from this? That would be my only question as a school committee member. As a parent and as a school committee member, I'm so totally supportive of a 2-year minimum requirement. I think I also like that you're looking for where would a student who is not along that traditional, route, what else could they do, recognizing that languages are really important for everyone and for the world at large. So is there any budgetary change from this?
We're not anticipating any at
Okay.
all, because so many of our kids are already.
No, for on record, no.
Okay, had to ask as a school committee member. So I'm in strong support. Do we have a motion to, show our approval of this program?
So move.
I'll second.
Is there any discussion? All in favor?
Very
job,
exciting.
guys.
5-0
Thank
is our
you.
vote?
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you for being here.
Thank you very much.
It's so exciting to have you guys back after
Yeah, it's been great.
missing our updates from your department.
Well, it just breathes life into the stuff you do around the strategic plan and the budget and the things are going on. So it feels really good.
And
Thank you so much.
Yeah.
We're going to keep Brian at the
We
table.
should try
though.
to
stay here
get
for
that
a second.
95% to
You're
100%.
next on our list.
We should try and get that.
We'll work on that. You hear that?
So thank you so much. for
100%. He
being
wants 100%.
He wants 100%, Bobby. He wants 100%. If anybody can get 100%, it'll be
It's that
Bobby.
important.
Good job.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So next on our agenda is a request for approval of Fine Arts Theater overnight trip to New York City. So Brian Callahan is here to present that.
Yeah, I'm representing the Fine Arts Department here tonight with this request. I believe you've got it in your packet. Amber can speak to some of the details as well. I think there it is, good. The theater program, like many of us, took a hit over the last couple of years in terms of, Evita was not, performed as we had hoped, and some other, weekly and monthly sort of interactions. So Traditionally, we have taken a group of theater students to New York City on a day trip. We leave at 6 o'clock in the morning in a nice coach bus, and we take them to New York to visit the museums of modern art and explore New York City a little bit. We want to kind of make that a little bit more of an experience. So we're proposing for leaving on a Friday and catching a couple of Broadway shows between Friday evening and Saturday morning, a matinee in New York City, and staying overnight at a hotel, obviously that can accommodate us. Putting our kids in the vibrancy of Broadway and 51st Street and really taking it all in. The details are there. We take some tours, supervised tours of different areas.
I already volunteered to chaperone.
yeah.
I got closed
There's a long
out.
wait list for the
I got
chaperones.
closed out like right
I was
away.
just going to say, you won't have a problem finding chaperones.
They would see Hamilton on Friday night, the
seen
13th
Hamilton? I've never
of May, and then a Saturday afternoon matinee of Come From Away.
I'm pretty sure a school committee member should definitely supervise this trip.
Become an annual thing. You might have to make a subcommittee. I'd like to see the fight for that seat. But if you could approve this, we obviously would run it and manage it the way we have with international overnight trips and other overnight trips, with safety as our top priority, nurse involved, bags and gear checks, the morning of, supervision set up at the hotel. We'd work with local security, obviously, too, at the hotel. And our kids are excellent, but we would provide the supervision necessary to keep them safe and bring them back.
It says there's 36 student spots, and I know that, over the past 2 years, some opportunities for some of our students did disappear because of COVID in terms of performances or the trip to Disney, all that stuff. Will you prioritize like seniors and juniors for this? Or
So
will
I
it
think
be-
they might already have the list of students already determined. It's
Okay,
those
got
that
it.
have been in performances, yes. So I think prioritize is a fair word. Those kids that have been in the program sort of the longest and
Yeah.
maybe have missed the most.
Yeah,
I think are ones that are. I said earlier, kids have their opinions. I think they've already stated that they're that they're going. So we want to
Yep.
accommodate those older students who won't have a chance to do it in the future.
Sure,
Yeah,
sure. That's what
definitely.
I was thinking about. Yeah.
Definitely.
Anyone else? Yeah.
I think it's cool you're going to take the train.
Yeah, isn't that neat?
Yeah.
I've taken that train. It's really a lot of fun.
Yep.
I think
And it's a
they'll
whole
really-
different experience
Totally.
because when you're sitting in a bus or in a car,
Yep.
the time goes forever.
Yep.
Whereas when you're on the train, you got all your buddies around you.
Yep.
You talk. All of a sudden, you're there.
Yeah.
Exciting, I agree.
You definitely see that same trip differently than if you're in a car on the Bronx Expressway. You see it differently from the train, for sure.
Yep.
Very nice.
It's a life skill for them, especially we live here where there are, a train station right here in town. And, there's trains get us out of here. And
Yep.
so it's awesome.
Yep. Yeah, they're really excited about it, and they put a lot of time to think this through with Melinda Jazz, our theater director, and obviously Chris Martin, our director, really collaborated nicely on this and got some feedback from the students as well. So, we're excited about it.
Well, I'd make a motion to approve this trip.
Second.
Now,
Will you bring an interpreter?
Not sure.
Any other discussion? So I do want to thank you for the many details that are in this form that we're seeing. People can't see it at home, but there's a lot of details, so we're not asking all those questions that we probably would have. So,
Yeah.
Gotta make sure we
anything
pass.
else?
I gotta make sure Lisa says.
okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Excellent.
5-0
thank you.
vote.
Enjoy.
All right. Yes. Thank you very much.
Can't wait to hear
Thanks.
all about
Have
it.
a great evening.
Yeah,
Good to see
take
you all
care.
again.
Thank you. Thank you for being here.
Brian, thank you so
Thank you,
much.
sir.
Thank you.
Next on our agenda is an update on the annual town meeting and warrant articles.
Sure, I'm going to keep us moving tonight. We've done a lot of good discussion around preparation for town meeting. This is a brief update, and I'll probably send you more emails and things. I don't think it needs to take a lot of our evening. I'm going to have Daniel pull up, I'll do the budget, I'll do the rough draft of the budget presentation for you, which is really the anchor of the day that we really need to bring forward thoughtfully. And then I'm going to finish making the other 4 presentations probably tonight, which is why it'd be good we finish, and have tomorrow to work on them as well. And then I'll share them with you. Those are, when we look at them, and I have updates on them, I've been gathering data on the different like ages of our chillers, what we've been spending on repairs. I'll drop that into the high school chiller article. I think there's really a compelling update there that change is well-timed. I have the date and age of the walk-in freezer, and I'll do probably just one slide on that. That's covered by the overlay, and I don't think it's going to get questioned. It's not going to hit any tax issues, but I'll provide it because sometimes people want that information. And then on the Armstrong Playground, thank you. I have some fresh photos and things that I'll pull into an article. I'll talk with Lisa and we'll make a plan around presentations and put together an update to you. And please remember, we meet at 8:30 where you'll open your meeting in the library. And then it is helpful to check in and then come down, and you don't feel pressed to go back. So Steve, is a new routine for you. I think it's really good to check in and then come on down to the library and we'll meet everybody. Gives us time I'm usually very nervous and I need to pace around, and everyone's very reassuring to me. That's why we convene ahead of time. That's kind of what it looks like. And then we just kind of talk through a few things, and then we go down and greet people, and we sit up front and kind of move into the day. The warrant book is out. It came out in online that came to you as well. And then you can pick up your books and everything there because we all like to write in them as we pace ourselves through. Right now, I'm anticipating that I would do the overview on the budget, and then we would field questions as a team with Daniel and David helping me answer any questions that come up. And then on the Armstrong, playground, I would take point on answering primary questions. And then really as a team, anybody that wants to, I think Kristen had volunteered to do backup on that one, I believe. We'll finalize these. And then if there's questions where we feel like another voice is helpful, so you're just not listening to the same people, Kristen can add pieces for that one. And again, you guys can discuss further, and I'll work with Lisa on that. The high school chiller and the HVAC article, I'll prep the slides, and I think at the time we were thinking that Steve, who's got history on that and has a strong knowledge of the roofs and the past work and the HVAC stuff, should take point on questions for that. And so I'll be sharing the presentations as soon as I can, get them done. And then you guys can take a look at them. I mean, content-wise, they're kind of self-explanatory. So let me step you quickly through this one, and I'll give you kind of like I'll do speed presentation to give you a feel for this, and then you can send me feedback on what you want. Dave and I walked through this today. He thought it was pretty tight. When you're on town meeting floor, we know they want nuts and bolts, right? So I'll dive right in. I'm going to give them this overview that the 23 budget was built on 21 and 22, looking at that 1.1 million in cuts. I'll reemphasize the strong collaborative effort of all of the municipal groups that brought us to those 2 years of survival, wanting to come out of fiscally secure at the end, and what a partnership that was. I'll also emphasize in FY22 a few of the items that we carried into 22, but that beyond that, all of these other cuts have been maintained and aren't returning. I'll emphasize as well the relationship that we've shared over the last several years of budgeting that impact this budget, where we've seen some increases. And I think it's just important for people to say, why is it so expensive to run schools, and what's going on, and why have we seen these increases? These are the things that we worked on with them collaboratively over the last several years, both at town meeting and in municipal boards. And I'll just do some big picture points at that. I'll also then move into where we are with 23, that over the last 3 budget cycles, they've been level funded, decreased, or minimal increases. And that in this FY23, there are just very few targeted increases, looking at the technology recovery, which still leaves us 20,000 short of where we had been, the rate increases for contracts around subs, guidance, extra day, and curriculum writing. I'm going to highlight the transportation increase anticipated for the, what do we call it? We call it the CPA index, and that we carried that forward. And then they'll see later on that we've eliminated that, and I'll talk about it further. Yeah.
What exposure do we have for fuel increases in this budget for the transportation?
Last time we spoke to NRT, there is actually the CPI index incorporates
driver?
that. Yeah.
So if it goes up based on what we're seeing, then
Yep.
we're going to pay more.
Yep.
Okay.
So I'll emphasize those pieces, and I'll walk through just a little bit more on that. Means the targeted increases in athletics, really look again at contracts. We put a lot of that stuff on gate fees and other things. We can't carry all of it there. There's a minor increase that needs to keep us kind of true to the costs of those items. And the technology needs, I'll highlight those quickly. And then I'll look at the fact that we remained concerned about where that budget was coming in. It was still felt high during a year when we knew that people were talking about the concerns around, what was coming to town meeting. We went back and pushed more onto revolving accounts and cut 2 positions. From there, this is a new circuit breaker slide. I'm trying to keep it a tight synopsis for people to be, you don't want to get in the weeds on circuit breaker at town meeting. So this is the annual state funding that supports tuitions. We get money from the state for educational outplacement of students who need to be in off-sites. Typically, it gets funded, it pays for 60 to 75%. There's a 1-year delay in that funding, so there's always a gap. The gap is always between the number of students we have going out and the percent funded in that year, and there's usually a gap. And then this year, you're seeing a gap of 631,000 that's related to the fact that more students have needed to go out as we've faced an increase in mental health and complex students. We've seen increased costs, and there's a 1-year delay in that maybe increasing the circuit breaker. We've also looked always for opportunities to offset costs, and we use the community ed to pay for an offset on electricity and custodial and supplies because they use our space. And we've leveraged the ESSER funds for staffing to provide extra support to students, and we've maintained some of that for use into FY24. And that the kindergarten revolving account, we were able to further stage that out as opposed to having to use all of it in FY21. And we've been able to look toward maintaining some of it this year in FY23 and into 24. So where did that bring us? You can see the fact that there's very little in this budget. You see the hit of just the gap in funding. And then you see the modest increases for the technology and athletics, and the 132 that would have been the CPI index increase of 4%, which we then, working forward in partnership, level funded. And it brings us to the final recommendations that are in the book. You can see that this budget represents a rollover of contracts and the impact of the circuit breaker gap, and then those 2 modest increases. We do all of this while trying to be competitive and high quality. You can see that in these trends. These are things we handed out to you in the book, but I'll emphasize them again if you haven't had a chance to look at it, is simply that of our comparative communities, our cost per pupil, which is inclusive of the healthcare cost impact in our town that we carry as well, are right smack in the middle of our like communities. We're also at the very bottom in terms of increase over the last several years.
Wait, can you just go back because that arrow is pointing to Lexington instead of Westborough?
All right, can we move that?
I'm just saying, we might want to be clear.
That's my next job. I'm just pointing it out. No, it's like there's like the next town we're hopping to. I don't know why
anyone
I just like,
notices.
what are we tipping our hand on? All right, so we'll fix that. Thank you.
Yeah.
Daniel and I'll replace
Sorry.
that tomorrow. Can you believe we haven't picked that up? Do you think it moved when I increased the slide size?
And I should mention the 8% is at a different level than the other 8%.
Two 8%.
2 8% that are different levels.
All right.
Okay.
All right, what's going on?
I don't know. We made this slide up. No. It might be that when we shifted it into the PowerPoint, it got juggled around.
that
So,
can happen.
well, I don't think it looked like that
I
before.
mean, it
So
could be,
we'll
I wouldn't think
tweak
the
it.
round, like with the bars, wouldn't they round, maybe it's how it's rounded in the background?
Yeah, I'm
Maybe
sure
it's
that's what that is, but you're right, that when you change the width of the slide.
I think the arrow
stays-
bumped over, so we'll fix that. This is why we go through it together, hot off the
Late
presses.
nights, too many late
I
nights on
know.
the side.
And I think this is a really important slide that as we look at like, what is the percentage of the overall cost in the town budget? You know, where do we fall in comparison to other communities? I think it's of note that we're very much in the middle around the overall percentage of the town budget that is represented by the schools.
Look how well placed that arrow is too.
Yes, it's a very well-placed arrow.
Very good.
Properly.
And lastly, I think it's of note as well that we continue to be high performing at a cost competitive while we have a higher percentage of complex needs students. And we're immensely proud that they perform at a very high level with the supports we're able to provide for them, and they thrive in Westborough, but it does have cost impact for us. And there's questions. So Dave and I timed it. It's pretty tight. It's probably 6 minutes. So, you know, the idea is basically hit them with the high points and then answer questions. And so here are the backup. You're also trying to anticipate backup questions. So there's a bunch of slides in the backup. There's this one. There's these things I think they might ask. I've got the class size stuff in there. I've got that slide I think I'll probably take out. It's too hard to read. A little bit on colleges, we don't really need that. A little bit about class size. If they ask anything about those building level budgets, they can see them. I can dump that one, dump this one. So I've got some good stuff in there and I'll delete the other stuff. I just held ones when they have questions that I've got them if we need them and we can hop to them and they just fall, nobody sees them unless we need them. So I don't know how to do escape on here. Hold on. Anyway, I'm done, so you can close that. So that's the presentation where it is now. I think if you can, you know, I can send it to you if you want, or you can just, I'll link it. I don't know if you can with a PowerPoint, I'll figure that out. But I think you got the gist of it. If you have feedback you want to give me, I'll perfect, I'm not going to like speed race through it, but I'll tighten up the talking points and come in with it pretty much ready to go.
Yeah, if you can fix those arrows and send it to us, we'll make sure they're all in the right place.
All right. And then, let's see, I think the others will be tight as well. I've got, like I said, new photos on a couple, and we'll drop in some talking points on the age of equipment and different things like that. And I think that kind of encapsulated the two last big presentations we did in a way that people can use them. The other thing that we will send you probably Thursday is the final flyer that we're working on printing, and Kristen took point on pulling that together, and we'll be looking at it. Daniel's going to give it a look, and we can then kind of like pull that together, and we'll print that on Friday. Donna and Andrew will print it, and we'll take it over to the high school so it'll be ready to go. Okay. I'm thinking we're going to print like 350.
Yeah.
You know.
One thing, just a question on if you took some of the bar graphs,
If they've changed, yeah.
yeah, you should just, I can look at it, or you can look
Check
at it.
the arrows.
Check the arrows, check the rounding. I mean, if I'm fixing it here, I can fix it for you. It'll, you know.
And resend it and just
Just
swap
send me
it
the
in.
updated ones and I'll just replace them.
Okay. And I need to send you a
use
couple.
those some of those bar.
I use the
bar
ones
charts.
that, will I request, yeah.
And I owe you
Once
some
I
more.
get the PowerPoint.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was
straight,
having a hard time taking them out of the PowerPoint, so that's why I requested permission to go into the spreadsheet to get them.
Okay.
So
Complicated.
we'll coordinate with you tomorrow, Daniel, and I'll work on the presentations, and Dave and I will review them. And tomorrow's Thursday, so the clock is
Yeah,
ticking, and
I
they
mean-
all have to be over to town hall by around noon. So
Yeah, I mean, we can leave the cover as it is. They're great
Yeah,
photos.
we've got a
They're just
couple
little
new photos we'll send, but anyway, again, I
East
think
of our-
it's weird what people notice. I just want to be thoughtful that we have a couple new ones in there. But yeah, Daniel has a whole file of better pictures, and I got some more, and I'll just share you into the folder
Great.
when I go home.
Okay.
All right? So I think that's prep for town meeting. Any questions or other discussion items?
Just want to thank you for your hard work, and Dave and Daniel and Kristen.
Yeah.
It's a lot that goes into it, so we appreciate it.
Yeah, thank you. I think, again, on the ground, the work is to encourage people to come and do the work of being a citizen of the community and to vote your articles and to, come see how the town is run.
Okay, so we're on the final approval of the strategic plan.
Yeah, so I'll have Daniel pull it up there. So you've seen this plenty. I don't think there's particularly more to say about it. It's kind of at final edit, so we're able to complete it to the stage of putting in the introduction, getting the links set up. It's a much more functional document, as we said. It's got a cleaner line than the other one had. I think it's a little more contemporary and fresh looking. Gives people a path through the document with the graphics. We use this one right here when we're just sharing a synopsis out to people, like to teachers. They can get kind of an overview of it without needing the whole document. So the idea is structurally some of those pages can be pulled out and used in shorter versions so that you're not sharing the whole document with people, and that's helpful. And then I think if you scroll down a little bit, Daniel, then you'll see that the other pieces, you've got the all the links to kind of hop you around in the document. And I think one of the things, Chris Martin, I want to thank him for kind of thinking about the graphic layout, and John Green thinking about it as well. We did a better job differentiating the sections with how they're colored and marked. I think people can navigate it a little better. So I think I think the way to, I then will make, like I always make a hard copy of this and I use it to put notes in, and then annually, so you understand the mechanics of how we'll keep a record, annually I archive a historical copy and put it into, the folder of school committee. It would be like, this was this one from year one. And then it can evolve with changes embedded in the document, but there's always an archived copy of one that existed as it was voted. So when you vote this, tomorrow Andrea will make a copy of it and she'll put it in there and she'll do a PDF as well. And that will stand in the starting record of kind of the year. And then we'll move forward because you notice, that strategically you have 21, 22, which is the year we're in, carrying a small number, but a fair scaffolded set of the goals that we have been updating you on. So you'll get your first end of year report from me this year, just on some of those first core goals. So if you go into the document and you like to spend time reading, you can see that you can focus on 21, 22, and you can see things that you'll get kind of updates on by the end of the year. You also know that in the summer, the team will go in and start developing action plans following the document. What groups need to be put together? What working groups do we need? How long do we need? What kind of work needs to be done? So I think there are people excited about, it's exciting to picture new teams coming together. Like we need some sustainability teams. We need some building-based teams. I'm very interested in this next document providing kind of new opportunities for leadership across the district, where we use student and faculty leadership to kind of really pick up some of the targeted work we want to do around sustainability. And so I think that will have a very different feel for the experience of kind of some of the stuff that's in here. And then, we'll dive in. So there's an ambitious set of goals and we'll try to keep moving on them. I think if we use the last document as our benchmark, we have a pretty high percentage of completion rate. I mean, I think when Daniel and I review kind of the 6 years of that work, really we're able to kill off probably 98% of that document with success. achievement of goals that we had set. So these have a different flavor of goals. They're more pedagogy. There's some kind of integration of the systems practices and some other types of things that are a little more sophisticated, kind of next stage of work for us. But I think it speaks to the age of the team and the work that, Westborough is kind of focusing on. Again, you know that it represents the leadership of a giant group of people, and you're lucky to be shepherding a very talented team. There's some new people, there's fresh eyes on things, but there's also a stable working group that know how to use this document. So I'm kind of excited for, what's coming. So I guess I would ask at this time, Dana, do you have anything to add? I mean, we've been at this one a while. We just want to approve it and get going, right?
That's what we want to do. We want to get working.
We've kind of looked at the document and we're like, oh, now we got to do all this work. So I just need your approval if you're willing to make it.
Okay, do we have a motion?
Yeah, I'd like to move it. I think it's really an amazing document in the sense of the amount of work that went into it and the thinking that went into it. I mean, all things being considered, the school budget at 60%, 60 million, roughly 53% of the town's budget. This is a very large company, if you will, and you need to have a plan. And this is a plan to deliver what I believe has been the interest of the school committee. A quality education with thoughtful effort to continue to be in the forefront of what's needed in education in our society today. So I'm in favor of it, and I would move the strategic plan.
I'll second. That was important. Is there any discussion?
You've taken the wind out of our sails.
Just get working. Say, just get working.
Get working. Yeah. Okay, let's take a roll call vote. I'm sorry, motion. What am I saying?
I know, we're used to being on Zoom.
All in favor?
There we go.
That's 5-0 approved and 5 present. So the next meeting of the school committee is scheduled for Wednesday, March 30th. I want to thank Westborough TV for filming us this evening and Jen Benton for taking our minutes, as usual, doing a great job. Do we have a motion to adjourn?
I'll move the motion to adjourn.
In a second. All in favor? 5-0, and the meeting is adjourned.